The world stopped spinning the moment I pushed open the hotel room door. Silk petals from my boutonniere drifted to the floor, and the laughter from the rehearsal dinner downstairs faded into a hollow hum. There, tangled in the crisp white sheets of what was supposed to be our bridal suite, was my fiancé, Ethan, with someone else, a stranger whose face I didn't care to memorize. I stood frozen, my tuxedo jacket too tight, my heart a fist pounding against my ribs. This was the man I'd loved for 3 years. The one who'd promised me forever under a starlit sky in Montauk. The man who, in less than 12 hours, was supposed to stand at the altar and say I do. Instead, he was here, betraying me in the most visceral way possible. My knees buckled, but I didn't fall. Something inside me, maybe, or the ghost of my own pride kept me upright. I could have screamed. I could have torn the room apart. But instead, I laughed. A sharp, jagged sound that sliced through the air and made Ethan's head snap up. His eyes widened, guilt and panic warring across his chiseled face. But I didn't wait for his excuses. I turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind me like a gunshot. The hotel hallway stretched endlessly before me, its gold-trimmed wallpaper blurring as tears stung my eyes. I was Julian Carter, 27, a graphic designer with a knack for seeing beauty in chaos. But nothing had prepared me for this. I'd spent months planning our wedding, every detail, from the lavender centerpieces to the string quartet playing our song. Now, it was all ash. I didn't know where I was going until I found myself in the hotel's garden, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and impending rain. My polished shoes sank into the damp grass as I paced, trying to outrun the ache in my chest. That's when I saw him, Richard, Ethan's father, sitting alone on a wrought iron bench beneath a magnolia tree. He was in his late 40s, broad-shouldered and silver-streaked, with a quiet intensity that always made me feel seen. Unlike Ethan's polished charm, Richard's presence was raw, grounded, like the earth after a storm. Julian. His voice was low, concerned, as he rose to his feet. What's wrong? I opened my mouth to lie, to say I was fine, but the truth spilled out instead. Ethan's upstairs, with someone else, in our room. Richard's face hardened, his jaw tightening as he processed the words. He didn't ask for details or defend his son. Instead, he stepped closer, his hand hovering near my shoulder as if he wanted to touch me but wasn't sure he should. I'm so sorry, he said, and the weight of his sincerity nearly broke me. Don't be, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He doesn't deserve my tears. Or yours. Richard's eyes searched mine, and for the first time, I noticed the flecks of green in their hazel depths. There was something that had always been there, simmering beneath the surface of our polite interactions at family dinners and holiday gatherings. A spark. A pull. I'd ignored it before, chalking it up to admiration for a man who'd built a life of quiet strength after losing his wife a decade ago. But now, standing in the garden with my world in pieces, I couldn't look away. Julian, he said softly, you don't have to go through this alone. The air between us crackled, charged with something reckless and alive. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just stepped forward, grabbed the lapels of his suit jacket, and kissed him. His lips were warm, hesitant at first, then hungry, like he'd been waiting for this moment as long as I had. The kiss was a rebellion, a defiance of everything that had just shattered. It was wrong, maybe, but it felt like the only thing that made sense. When we pulled apart, his breath was ragged, his hand still resting lightly on my waist. Julian, what are we doing? He whispered, but there was no regret in his voice, only wonder. I don't know, I admitted, my heart racing. But I'm not sorry. The next morning, the wedding was still on. Not because I wanted it, but because I needed to see it through to face Ethan and the world he thought he could control. The venue, a sprawling estate in upstate New York, buzzed with guests in tailored suits and flowing dresses. Oblivious to the storm brewing inside me, I stood in the groom's suite, staring at my reflection in a full-length mirror. My dark hair was swept back, my blue eyes sharp with determination. I looked like a man ready to marry, but I was something else entirely, a man ready to rewrite his story. Ethan knocked on the door, his voice muffled but urgent. "Jules, can we talk?" I opened the door, and there he was, pristine in his tuxedo, his blonde hair perfectly styled. He looked every bit the alpha male he prided himself on being, confident, untouchable. But I saw the cracks now, the cowardice beneath the charm. "I'm sorry," he started, his hands raised in a plea. "It was a mistake. A stupid, drunken mistake. I love you, Julian. We can still do this." I laughed again, softer this time, but no less cutting. "You don't love me, Ethan. You love the idea of me. The perfect partner to parade around, to make you look good. But I'm done being your prop." His face flushed, a mix of anger and desperation. "You're throwing away everything we've built over one night." "No," I said, stepping closer, my voice steady. "You did that. I'm just choosing not to live in your wreckage." I left him standing there, his mouth open, no words coming out. For the first time in years, I felt free. Downstairs, the ceremony was about to begin. The string quartet played a soft rendition of Clair de Lune, and the air was thick with anticipation. I spotted Richard near the back of the crowd, his presence a quiet anchor in the chaos. Our eyes met, and he gave me a small, knowing nod. Whatever happened next, I wasn't alone. As I walked down the aisle, every step deliberate, I felt the weight of every gaze in the room. Friends, family, strangers, they all thought they knew what was coming. They thought this was a love story. And maybe it was, just not the one they expected. The aisle stretched before me like a tightrope, each step a test of balance between who I'd been and who I was becoming. The crowd's murmurs faded into a distant hum, their smiles frozen in expectation. I could feel Ethan's presence at the altar, his posture stiff, as if he could will this moment back into his control. But this wasn't his story, Anna Marie, it was mine. I reached the front, where the officiant, a kind-eyed woman in her 60s, waited with a serene smile. The plan was simple. I'd stand here, say my piece, and walk away. No vows, no rings, just the truth. But as I turned to face the crowd, my eyes found Richard again. He was seated now, his hands clasped tightly, his gaze steady and unwavering. It was like he was holding me up, even from across the room. "Friends, family," I began, my voice louder than I'd expected, cutting through the music. The quartet faltered, then stopped. "Thank you for being here. But there's something you need to know." I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "There won't be a wedding today." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ethan's face drained of color, his hands clenching into fists. I didn't look at him for long, it didn't need to. Instead, I kept my focus on the sea of shocked faces, their confusion a mirror of the chaos I'd felt last night. "Ethan made a choice," I continued, my voice steady but laced with emotion. "And I'm making mine. I deserve love that doesn't lie, that doesn't hide. And I'm choosing to walk away from anything less." The silence was deafening, broken only by a few whispers and the creak of chairs as people shifted uncomfortably. Ethan stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. "Julian, don't do this. We can fix it. Please." I turned to him, And for a moment, I saw the man I'd fallen for, the one who'd made me laugh until my sides ached, who'd held my hand through late-night design deadlines. But that man was gone, buried under layers of arrogance and betrayal. "There's nothing to fix," I said softly. "You broke us." I walked off the altar, my heart pounding but lighter than it had been in years. The crowd parted as I made my way to the back, where Richard stood waiting. He didn't say anything, just offered his hand. I took it, and we left the venue together, the weight of 100 stairs burning into my back. Outside, the air was crisp, the sky a bruised purple as storm clouds gathered. Richard's hand was warm in mine, grounding me as we walked toward his car. "You were incredible back there," he said, his voice thick with admiration. "Brave." "I don't feel brave," I admitted, stopping to face him. "I feel lost, but also like I'm finally finding myself." He smiled, a small, crooked thing that made my chest ache in the best way. "You're not lost, Julian. You're just starting over." We drove to a diner a few miles away, a quiet place with chipped mugs and neon lights that buzzed softly. Over coffee and pie, we talked not about Ethan or the wedding, but about everything else. Richard told me about his years as a carpenter, the way he'd built his first table with his father's tools, the pride he'd felt when it sold. I told him about my art, the way a blank canvas could feel like both a challenge and a promise. It was easy, natural, like we'd been having this conversation for years. But the weight of last night's kiss lingered between us, unspoken but heavy. I wanted to ask what it meant, what we meant, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I reached across the table and brushed my fingers against his. He didn't pull away. "Julian," he said after a long silence, "I don't know what this is, but I know I don't want to lose it." My heart stuttered. Me neither. The rest of the day passed in a blur. We drove through the countryside, the radio playing soft jazz as the rain finally came, pattering against the windshield. We didn't talk about the future, but we didn't need to. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. By evening, we'd ended up at Richard's cabin, a small, cozy place tucked into the woods. It was simple but warm, with bookshelves lining the walls and a fireplace that crackled softly as he lit it. We sat on the couch, a blanket draped over our legs, and I let myself lean into him. His arms settled around my shoulders, and I closed my eyes, letting the steadiness of his breathing anchor me. "I never thought I'd be here," I murmured. "Not like this." "Neither did I," he said, his voice low. "But I'm glad you are." I tilted my head to look at him, and the world narrowed to the space between us. This time, when we kissed, it wasn't fueled by anger or defiance. It was slow, deliberate, a promise of something new. His hands cupped my face, and I felt safe, wanted, in a way I hadn't in years. But the world wasn't done with us yet. As we pulled apart, my phone buzzed on the coffee table, Ethan's name flashing across the screen. I ignored it, but the moment was broken, a reminder that the past wasn't so easily left behind. The fire crackled in Richard's cabin, casting flickering shadows across the walls. But Ethan's name on my phone screen was a cold splash of reality. I silenced the call, but the weight of it lingered, heavy as the rain drumming against the windows. Richard's hand rested on my knee, a quiet question in his touch. "You don't have to answer," he said, his voice steady but soft. "But you might want to. Eventually. For closure." I shook my head, the ache in my chest flaring. Closure feels like giving him more of me than he deserves. Richard nodded, his thumb brushing lightly against my knee. "Then don't give him anything. But don't let him take your peace, either." His words settled into me, grounding but sharp, like a truth I wasn't ready to face. I leaned back against the couch, my shoulder brushing his, and let the silence stretch. For now, Ethan could wait. This moment, this fragile, beautiful thing between me and Richard was worth protecting. The next few days were a strange dance of freedom and uncertainty. I stayed at the cabin. My phone turned off. The outside world reduced to the rustle of leaves and the occasional hum of Richard's truck as he ran errands. We cooked together. Simple meals of pasta and roasted vegetables, laughing over my hopeless attempts to chop onions without crying. We took walks through the woods, the air crisp with autumn, and talked about everything and nothing, our favorite books, the places we'd always wanted to see, the dreams we'd tucked away when life got in the way. But the pull between us grew stronger, impossible to ignore. It was in the way his hand lingered on mine when he passed me a mug of coffee, the way his eyes softened when I laughed. It was in the quiet moments, like when we sat on the porch at dusk, watching the sky turn to fire, and I realized I hadn't thought about Ethan all day. One night, as we sat by the fire, I asked the question that had been burning in me since the wedding. Richard, why me? Why now? He looked at me, his expression raw, unguarded. I've always seen you, Julian. Even when you were with Ethan, I saw the way you lit up a room, the way you cared so fiercely. I told myself it was wrong to feel anything, that you were my sons. But when I saw you in that garden, so strong despite everything, I couldn't look away anymore. His words hit me like a wave, warm and overwhelming. I reached for him, my hand finding his, and we sat there, fingers intertwined, the fire painting us in gold. I'm scared, I admitted. This is all so new, and I don't know what comes next. Me too, he said, squeezing my hand. But we'll figure it out. Together. The next morning, reality intruded again. A knock at the cabin door startled us both. And when Richard opened it, there was Ethan, his face a storm of anger and desperation. Julian, he said, his voice tight. We need to talk. Now. Richard stepped forward, his body a quiet shield between me and Ethan. He doesn't owe you anything. Ethan, leave. But I shook my head, stepping out from behind Richard. No. I'll talk to him. I'm done running. We stepped outside, the air cold and sharp. Ethan's eyes darted between me and Richard, his jaw tightening as he pieced things together. So this is it. You're with him now. His voice dripped with disbelief. But there was pain there too, raw and jagged. I'm not with anyone, I said, though the words felt like a lie. I'm just done with you. You made your choice, Ethan. Now live with it. You're making a mistake, he snapped, stepping closer. You think my father can give you what I did? He's old, Julian. He's not. Enough. I cut him off, my voice steady. You don't get to decide what I deserve. Not anymore. Ethan stared at me, his anger crumbling into something broken. For a moment, I saw the boy I'd loved, the one who'd promised me the world. But that boy was gone, and I wasn't the same man who'd believed him. He left without another word, his car peeling out of the driveway, leaving only silence in its wake. I turned to Richard, who was watching me with quiet pride. You okay? He asked. I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. Yeah, I think I am. The days after Ethan's visit felt like stepping into a new world. The cabin, once a temporary refuge, became a home. Richard and I settled into a rhythm, mornings spent sketching by the window while he worked on a new table in his workshop. Afternoons exploring the woods. Evenings curled up by the fire. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And that was enough. But the world outside didn't stop turning. Friends reached out. Some supportive, others confused or judgmental. My sister, Lila, called one morning, her voice gentle but firm. Julian, I just want to know you're okay. People are talking, but I don't care about them. I care about you. I'm more than okay, I told her, glancing at Richard as he chopped wood outside. I'm happy. She paused, then laughed softly. Then that's all that matters. Just be careful. Okay. The heart's a tricky thing. She was right. What Richard and I had was new, fragile, and complicated by the shadow of Ethan. But it was also real, built on mutual respect and a shared willingness to take a chance on something unexpected. One evening, as we sat on the porch, the air heavy with the scent of pine, Richard turned to me. I've been thinking, he said, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. I don't know what the future holds, Julian, but I want you in it. If you'll have me. My heart swelled, a mix of fear and hope. I want that too, I said, leaning into him. But what about everything? Ethan, the age difference, what people will say? Let them talk, he said, his hand finding mine. We're not hurting anyone, and I'm tired of living for other people's expectations. Aren't you? I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. Yeah, I am. We kissed under the stars, the world quiet except for the rustle of leaves and the beat of my heart. It wasn't a promise of forever, neither of us was naive enough for that, but it was a promise to try, to build something real. Months later, I stood in a small gallery in Brooklyn, my artwork lining the walls. It was my first solo show, a collection of paintings inspired by the past year, vibrant abstracts of heartbreak, rebellion, and love. Richard was there, his quiet presence a steady anchor as I mingled with guests. Lila was there too, her arm linked with mine, whispering, "You did it, Jules. You're shining." As the night wound down, Richard pulled me aside, his eyes bright. "I'm proud of you," he said, handing me a small wooden box he'd carved himself. Inside was a simple silver ring, not an engagement ring, but a symbol of something deeper: commitment, trust, a shared journey. "I don't know what we're building," he said, his voice soft, "but I want to keep building it with you." I slipped the ring onto my finger, my heart full. Me too. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be whispers, judgments, moments of doubt. Ethan might resurface, and the world might try to pull us apart. But as I stood there, Richard's hand in mine, I knew we'd face it together. Love, I'd learned, wasn't about perfection or expectations. It was about choosing someone who saw you, who fought for you, who made you want to fight for yourself. On my wedding day, I'd lost the life I thought I wanted. But in its place, I'd found something better myself, and a love that was worth every risk.